I want to make sure I understand your question as it's put forward. Are you asking, what they wrote was that you want clarification of positive atheist thinking. Are you talking about the thinking of someone who identifies as a positive atheist? Or, I mean, can you clarify what it is you're looking for?
Well, you mentioned in the very beginning of the show that one of the purposes of the show is to promote positive atheist thinking.
I said positive atheist culture.
So what does that mean exactly?
It means that we have people who are atheists, who many of whom are disenfranchised from religious cultures that they have been ostracized from, for example, where you're not allowed to be in that church anymore, you've been shunned, you've lost your family. And so they look for other people who will accept them so that they can socialize because they're social creatures. And so we want to give them a positive experience of having other human beings with whom they can be friends and whom they can interact and build social supports just like everyone needs. And that's kind of my understanding of what that would mean.
I would expand that to include people like we're talking about Phil. I'm filling in for Phil, and he's just a one-person charity machine.
Yeah, he's a volunteer dynamo.
And every time you see him, you're just like, what am I doing with my life? But if I were to find an example of positive atheist culture, I think he would be a living example of what that looks like, because you don't need religion to do good things, and that
just to give a little context, Phil, who he's talking about, is also on the show sometimes, and he got an award. I think at the
that he knows, huh?
Well, we got an award he got an award at our last annual Bat Cruise thing, I think it was, where it was Volunteer of the Year or something, because Phil heads up what is called the ramp. He heads our section, or our little meetups for the ramp projects, which is to build ramps onto houses or buildings that need them for people with wheelchair access, right? And then
helping the homeless.
Yeah, he does Atheists Helping the Homeless, and he devotes himself kind of to this, and he organizes and coordinates this between Austin and also in San Antonio. And this is sort of what he dedicates himself to when he's not working full time. So
and planting trees.
Yeah, and
cleaning highways.
He's that sort of, if you're looking for an outlet to do, good charitable things, he is there for that. Because a lot of people, again, lose that when they end up being, excised from their religious culture and their religious society. Does that help you understand it?
Oh, yeah, it does. And I actually wanted to bring up a clarification on something else.
Okay.
Don't you think it's a little interesting? Don't you think it's a little interesting that that quote unquote positive atheist culture is basically dependent on Christian culture?
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying.
Well, you're saying that they have to find a cult. Now that they've been basically shunned by the Christian community, they have to go find another culture. But their culture is basically directly coordinated to the Christian culture.
Not at all. So, for example, I came from the Church of Christ, right? The Church of Christ did not do volunteer outreach. We didn't do any kind of volunteer, any kind of charitable work, nothing like that. That was supposed to be done by the individual Christian in their individual time, in their individual life. They didn't coordinate it as a church. So my church didn't really do that. So it's as far as if a person is involved in a charitable culture, that can be religious or not religious. There are secular charities that aren't necessarily atheist related, right? There are charities that are involved with education and literacy that aren't religious or atheistic or anything. So charity is not owned by the church, right? Charity is something some churches do, but charity is also something that some people do.
And it's really exciting that you don't put those things together, because that's something that was ingrained in me in the church, was that is what a Christian does. And when people would
you were a liberal Christian.
Oh no. When I was but the idea when people described themselves and they talked about other people, he's a good Christian person. And so a big piece of that for me, Luke, is saying no, that's not necessarily the case. The reason we're bringing it up as positive atheist culture is because we want to show that you don't have to have God. And if there wasn't
helping people is not you can be involved in a religion and help people. But people helping people is a human thing. Whether you're religious or not, it's something people do because we're social animals.
And we kind of have nothing to show that against except theism. I mean, if there wasn't theism, there wouldn't be atheism, right? I mean, that's just kind of what you're left with. So if
So if
one
I'm
went,
hearing
the
you
other would go
correctly-
too, and it would just be positive culture.
Right.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, like helping others and being charitable are moral imperatives in atheism.
I'm not saying that it's a moral imperative in atheism. What I'm saying is it's a natural human thing. And I'm saying that there are some atheists who are going to be really moved toward charity in the atheist community, and some who are not. Some who just want to come to the pub night.
Yeah, that's just an example.
It's not a requirement for an atheist to do charity. It's not, it's just, it's available if they want to do it. It's about creating those opportunities for anybody that wants to pursue them. Phil is very in pursuit of those things.
Yeah.
Other people may do some of them and not others, and some people may do none of them.
Well, look at the secular families group. That's not necessarily
Yeah, he was, what was it? Eric was talking earlier about the idea that ACA is going to start a secular group for families, because a lot of the people who are in the group currently either don't have children or are not inclined to sort of participate in a family type thing. Like if you don't have kids, it's not that important to you. But if you do have kids, it's very important to you. Like, where do I go? I can't, like he was saying, I'm not dragging my kid to the happy hour. Yeah. So they're looking for something to do, and so they're starting up a family group. This has nothing to do, as far as I'm aware, with, it's not like tied inherently to some kind of charitable effort, but it's just about having a place to go where your kids can interact with other children. Because like if you walked into a church building, there would be the daycare where you drop the little toddler off, and then there's the little Sunday classes on the side for the different age groups, right? And you just hand them off, and then you go in and do the big auditorium for the adults for a while, and then you all come together. And so you have this sort of instant community that a church provides, where people can just be like, oh, here's the shortcut, right? I can just join this church and boom, it's all taken care of for me. But people who are in an atheist community, we don't already have that structure in place. And so we have to look at it and say, well, no, it's not like instant, community here. We are people who are like, if you move to a new city, like Matt has said before, when he was a Baptist, he could go to any city, and all he had to do was go to local Baptist church, and he had instant social framework and social support, because there were churches everywhere. But there's not like an atheist church. I mean, there are some secular church models, but the atheism itself doesn't really require coming together on Sundays or there's nothing about that. So we are people who, we have the same human need to socialize and to want to help sometimes other people, and to, do all kinds of things, have families and whatnot. And so we don't have the little instant pill that, bang, there's the church and here it all is. So we have to kind of do our own grassroots kind of thing. And the reason that the churches are set up as socially as they are is because of human need, right? You have the daycare because your church members have kids. So it's built around what people need, and what we're having to do is build something around what people need. Does that make sense?
So, but I'm not suggesting that you don't, obviously you don't have the accessible institutional structures that churches have. I'm just questioning the justification for the desire to say, oh, we do charitable work, because that kind of implies that in atheism, charity is a moral good that you should pursue.
No, I don't agree with that, because not all atheists are involved in charity work. Some of them, there are going to be some people who want to do charity. And for those people, it's good to have those charitable outreach efforts, so that if that's what they're into and that's what they want to do, they can go and do that. And there's other people who are just like, I just need to have contact with other people sometimes, and I want to go to happy hour on Thursday and brunch on Sunday, and that's all I really need from the group. And nobody says, oh, you're a horrible, immoral atheist because you don't come do the ramp build.
No.
So basically, so for the fulfillment of human need is a moral imperative and a moral good in atheism.
Wait. Yeah, it's not. It's not a moral imperative. It's just simply people are social by nature. And so most people, I mean, there are some people who don't like socializing, right? Who just say, I'm going to join ACA, but I really don't want to come to the stuff because I like just hanging out at home watching TV and ordering a pizza. But when you're asking about what is positive atheist culture, it's not positive atheist morality. We're not telling people what they have to do or don't do, and we're not judging them by which groups or which parts they participate in. We're just simply offering them things that people often express as needing, as human beings with social needs, right? So sometimes they just want to have contact with other people. They might want to meet other people for a romantic relationship. They may want to have an opportunity to do charitable work. They may just want to go somewhere where their kids can socialize with other kids outside of school. But it's not, I think you're a little bit too focused on this moral concept.
But when I'm discussing this with you, you're basically saying that fulfilling human needs is something that we as people should do and ought to do.
I think that it helps people. I'm not telling anyone to do it or not do it. I'm just saying that you can create those opportunities if this is what you'd like to do.
You seem super hung up on...
I'm not telling people, and this is the thing. Part of what I was explaining to somebody earlier when they were asking, is my reason for doing this to convert people to atheism? And I said, my reason is just to give them their lives back and let them do it. And I used an analogy also with someone else where I said, it's like somebody's in chains. I'm just breaking the chain. I'm not telling them where to run to when I release them or whether they have to move at all when I break the chain. If that chain gets broken, it's up to them what they do with it. I'm not telling them what to do. I'm not doing shoulds here. I'm not saying we're breaking these chains and now we're going to tell you that you should do this and you should do that. I'm just saying I'm breaking the chain. You're a human being. You have the freedom now to make choices about your life and what you want to do and where you want to go with that. And it is not up to me to tell you that. You have to sort that out for yourself. It's your life.
Yeah.
So,
what she said.
But the reason why I'm asking about the clarification of a positive atheist culture, because if atheism is not about morality and atheism is not about any kind of justification of saying what something is right or wrong or not, how can you say that you can produce a positive culture if there's no correlation to what is good or positive?
We are offering, I'm not saying that we are offering things that people traditionally express that they would like. Right? That help them in their lives, that they want to do in their lives. I'm not making judgments about what those people are asking for. The people that have children, we were talking earlier about, the morality of if everybody did it. And I was suggesting maybe that it would be more moral if we weren't breeding, right? And I'm not telling people whether or not they should have kids, but I don't think there's anything wrong with having a group where the people who do have children can come together and let their kids have a play date. I'm not saying that people should do that. I'm saying that there are people who feel like they would really like to have it. And as an atheist group, we felt like there was a need for this. People were asking for it. Members were asking for it. So let's produce it.
So there is having children interact together, having play dates are not necessarily good, not necessarily bad.
Okay. Hold on. I really got to step in here. Okay. So what springs to mind is the Side 10 Bruggen-Kate kind of idea that because you don't have God, you can't make a decision on what is good or bad, what is moral or immoral, because you don't have that basis. I want to clarify, is that what you're kind of, because it seems like you're more interested in the word good and positive, and then saying, how can you tell that this is good or positive, when we're giving you every example that we have, but it doesn't really seem to stick, or it doesn't seem to be...
I guess for me, I don't see these as moral issues. Whether or not somebody makes a group and lets the children come and have a play date or doesn't, I don't think they're moral or immoral based on that. I don't understand how this would even be a moral question. It's just simply something that people want. It makes them happy. It doesn't harm people. And so it would be provided because it meets a need that people have expressed as a need. That's all it is. It's not about telling people what they should or whether or not they should bring their kid. If you don't bring your kid to the play date, you're immoral. I'm not telling them that. And I'm not telling them, you shouldn't bring your kid to the play date. It's like, bring your kid to the play date, don't bring your kid to the play date. It doesn't matter. Some people want to have this play date group, and so we made a play date group because it makes some people happy. And that's up to them. If they didn't take advantage of it, we'd cancel it. If it turned out nobody showed up, for the next 10 play date groups, they'd probably say, yeah, we thought there was a need, but there's not. And just stop it. I don't think it would be good or bad. It would just be people wanted it made them happy. The other people didn't want it. Whatever. But these aren't moral questions.
And if they wanted to call it positive atheism,
it's positive in the sense that people have asked for it. It tends to make them happy. This side group over here wants this thing, and so we're providing it for them, because providing things that meet people's perceived needs generally is positively perceived. If you have a need and somebody meets that need for you, you're usually like, hey, that's very cool, thank you. But these aren't moral questions.
But if you don't have something that has, if you hold to a philosophy that denies the existence of intrinsic value or moral purpose,
I told you.
I
knew it.
Oh,
I
thank
knew
you,
it.
Eric. No, this
I
isn't,
told
but
you.
these aren't questions of morality, right? These aren't moral questions. I mean, what you're doing here is you just put us through, I don't know how many minutes of useless discussion because you would not come out with what your point was. Why did you do this whole sideline thing of what is if this was your question, why the hell didn't you ask this right up front instead of wasting the time that you did at the end of this show?
And really, if you're going to have your conclusion from the beginning that we can't be moral creatures or have that kind of decision-making ability, then if you've already come into it with that decision, why should we care what you have to say from here?
I'm beyond that. I'm beyond that. What does your morality say about dishonesty? When you come on and you ask about this positive atheist culture and you're basically trying to set up this framework of, I'm going to spring this trap. This is a trick question. I took your call because you were asking what is positive atheist culture, and I thought this is a simple thing to explain to a person. The problem is it's not a simple thing to explain to a person who is being dishonest and calling for dishonest reasons and doesn't really want to know the answer. This was a fact, right? Or what is it, jacking off, JAQ, just asking questions. You didn't really want an answer to this question. You wanted to make a point, but instead of making an honest point, you asked a freaking question that really wasn't relevant and really was just a distraction to kind of try to get us to loop us around so that you could say what you really wanted to say because you really didn't give a shit about what the answer was here, and that is a waste of the show's time. I don't appreciate that kind of dishonest question when you're really trying to make a point. Next time you call, make your freaking point. The end.
Yes.